Hi, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Babes in Bookland.
I'm your host, Alex Franca.
Today, I am talking about Girl Decoded, a scientist's quest to reclaim our humanity by bringing emotional intelligence with technology by Rana el Kaliouby with Carol Coleman, with my friend Chanel. Welcome. Hi, Chanel.
Hi, Alex.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I know that you didn't get a chance to read this book, but I really loved it. Her memoir gives insight into growing up in the Middle East, specifically as a woman, which I found fascinating. It has an incredible amount of cited research, which I really appreciated. And it was written by a woman driven by curiosity and a desire to make the world a more accessible place and a better place for everyone. So it was really inspiring. All right, let's get into it. Girl Decoded was released in 2020, and this is the dedication. For my mom, for teaching me that it's okay to embrace and celebrate your emotions. All right, first we start with some quick topics. At one point, Rana goes to Cambridge to pursue her PhD, and this is the first time that she realizes how sheltered her growing up was. They were considered middle class, but middle class where she lived in Egypt and at one point Syria, they still had people doing their laundry and people cooking dinner for them. She has this quote. She writes, "When I signed the lease for my apartment in Cambridge, my first question to the landlord was, 'Who cleans the apartment?' When he responded, 'You do,' I was floored." So I was wondering, what were some of the things that you learned the first time that you lived by yourself?
I moved to LA right when I was 18, and I was young and fresh, and my family just dropped me off, and it hit me that I was not prepared for this at all. There were so many things I realized that my family did for me growing up. Yes, so there was a lot of phone calls to my mom and my grandma asking them, how do I survive here? But it was exciting because then I realized, well, it's my life, so I get to dictate it a little bit. So it's nice to have that freedom, though.
Yeah, you had the resource if you needed it, but you were also able to make those decisions for yourself.
Yes, exactly. I will add, grocery shopping is very hard when you live on your own. Like lots of Lunchables and chips when I was 18. So
when I lived by myself, a lot of my meals were like steamed vegetables in a bag on top of like mac and cheese.
Yep.
That was kind of my diet for a while.
Love it. Same diet. Yep. We survived.
It's
so
not
it was
a
good.
bad diet.
Yeah.
Rana writes about this moment and this movement in her book. At the time, she is living in America and she has to come back to Egypt because the Arab Spring is happening. Had you ever heard of the Arab Spring?
I haven't, no.
I hadn't either. I got all of this information from brookings.edu. In December of 2010, Tanzanian street vendor Mohamed Bouazizi set himself on fire in protest outside a government office in the little-known town of Sidi Bouzid. In a matter of days, his act of defiance set off a revolutionary moment that rippled across the Middle East and North Africa, toppling some long-standing authoritarian regimes. The uprisings, commonly known as the Arab Spring, produced modest political, social, and economic gains for some of the region's inhabitants, but they also sparked horrific and lasting violence, mass displacement, and worsening repression in parts of the region. Protesters were motivated by many factors, but analysts say a common theme was a push for dignity and human rights. In many countries, religious tensions also played a significant role. For instance, Islamist parties gained power in formerly secular Tanzania and Egypt, although only temporarily in the latter. Meanwhile, deep sectarian divisions helped give rise to the anti-government movements in Bahrain, Syria, and Yemen. Only Tanzania made a lasting shift to democracy, whereas Egypt backslid and Libya, Syria, and Yemen spiraled into protracted civil wars. It was just so interesting to learn about this because now, being an adult and paying attention, you hear about so much conflict in the Middle East. And because Rana does mention it, I just thought it was important for us to get a snapshot of the history of what was going on at that time. There are probably documentaries that go into this, and as I was doing research, there are so many side stories that are important, but I just wanted to kind of give a brief overview because it was an important part of her life, and we're reading her memoir, you know? So this is our last quick topic. It may not be as quick because I feel like this is actually a really big thing. Rana writes about her struggle with maintaining a work-life balance. How do you feel your work-life balance is?
So, at the beginning of my career, I think my work life balance was amazing. I put such a high priority of taking care of myself, doing fun things. Like, once it hit 5:30, I was like, I'm out. I'm going to go to happy hour with my friends and socialize. And that was really important to me. But with the pandemic, that's where work and life balance completely shift. Working from home was very hard for me, and working remotely, I just worked a ton. I was like, work is here, I'm here, I'll just work. A regular 8-hour day would be 10-hour days because work was there. It was distracting. It was really hard to close your laptop when your office is in the bedroom. I can see it right there. I'll just finish it. I'm still struggling with it now. My work-life balance is hard because I'm working way more at home. Once it's the end of the day, I don't really have the energy to go out or do something for myself. I mean, my self-care probably is watching Bravo shows right after work. Yeah, I feel like my work-life balance right now is a little askew, and I'm hoping to bring some more life into it.
Do you feel like you set an unhealthy precedent during COVID that now you're finding difficult to walk back?
I mean, when I was in an office, I was like, well, I have to go home. I have to make my commute. So I feel like there's some guilt why I work later just because it's right there and I don't have an excuse. Like, I'm at home. So you're at your office. So why can't you finish it? You're at your office. So I think, yeah, it is a little bit harder to kind of go back to that sense. Like, no, I'm only working 8 hours and turning my laptop off and going hang out with my friends or my husband or just doing something for myself.
Do you feel like if you don't do that, somebody else will?
Sometimes it's either someone else will do it or it'll look bad that it took me a little longer if I didn't finish it that day or whatever time frame I gave myself or gave my team. I'm very bad at being honest if something might take a little bit longer for myself. If there's a new challenge, I sometimes overpromise, like, oh, I said 3 days, it'll take me 3 days, I'm gonna finish it in 3 days, and if it's not, I will just stay up till midnight and try to finish it and keep my promise. So I think that's where I struggle, just the honesty and open communication on some projects.
It feels like just generally in our culture right now, there's such an unhealthy push towards people being accessible 24/7, people being expected to do things 24/7, no matter what your field is.
Work is on our phone. Work is on the laptop. Like, we can work from anywhere in a lot of places. And yeah, we're just expected to because it's right there. I'm on vacation too. And I'm like, well, I can check Teams. Like, I'll just check in. Even though I took a vacation day, I told work. They said it was okay. I'm just so nervous. Yeah, someone might step up and do my work, or I just look like a bad employee. I think it's that fear of looking like a bad employee if I'm not constantly working. It's interesting seeing my younger self have such a healthier work-life balance, because sometimes you think the opposite. You think the grind, I'm just going to work and do it. But no, I was just a happy camper, worked, showed up, loved it, and I turned off instantly. And I just showed up the next day, next morning, totally fine. Of course, there's probably some one-offs where I worried about it, but not like how I do now. It's interesting. I know deep down they don't want me to be working on my honeymoon. They would be very upset with me if they found out I was messaging people on my honeymoon. So I'll definitely unplug. It's important. It's key.
In the episode that I did about Misty Copeland and her memoir, she writes, there's an old adage in the Black community that we have to be 10 times better just to get as much. Do you feel like there's any part of that influences this unhealthy work-life balance or this work ethic that you have developed?
I definitely think so. Being a Black woman in the gaming industry and in tech has always been very intimidating. And to feel like I can hang with the best of them, I feel like I always have to put in way more work, way more time just to prove myself. I know we'll probably dig into this more, but even with my education in tech, it wasn't a traditional. I didn't go to a 4-year college or get like a computer science degree. I did a coding boot camp. So even that too, just my educational background in tech doesn't feel valid enough as well to maybe someone that did 8 years and has a PhD and every type of computer science degree imaginable. I feel like for me, being a Black woman and maybe being younger on some teams, never taken seriously, I definitely have to show up 110%. I have to stand out and feel like I have to find like my edge too, to stand out and seem like I belong with a lot of my tech teams.
That's really frustrating because you've already gotten the job. You've proven that you have what it takes. And then to feel like you constantly have to prove yourself. When do you get to just enjoy the fruits of your labor?
I don't know when I'm going to get to enjoy, and I hope it's soon. And it's definitely a societal thing, but sometimes it's a me thing too, just putting that extra pain on myself. When you work on a team or work in an industry where no one looks like you, doesn't have similar personality to you, it's hard to show up and be like, I belong here, and everyone thinks that about me too.
I think that's the perfect segue to really get into Rana's journey. So she co-founds and becomes the CEO of a company called Affectiva. It's an artificial intelligence company. She is a pioneer in emotion AI, a branch of computer science dedicated to bringing emotional intelligence to the digital world. She grows up as an Egyptian Muslim. She writes, regardless of how religious I was or am now, one Quranic verse has been drilled into my brain. Your parents come first and second and third, and those parents of obedient daughters have a ticket straight to heaven. No matter how old or young I am, religious or not, a believer or not, I want my parents to get that ticket. Okay, that's just really kind of encapsulates exactly what we've been chatting about. Okay, Rana writes, in some parts of the fundamentalist Muslim world, educating girls is not a priority. In others, it can get you killed. But my parents revered education. Our lives revolved around it. So it sounds like she was very fortunate to grow up in the family that she grew up in. They were very encouraging of her education. They had high expectations of her, but also gave her the tools to help her succeed in that way. They traveled a lot, and this instilled a sense of wonder and adventure for her in the world. And there was no fear of other. It was only curiosity and open-mindedness. She writes, I may have been sent to Western-style, more progressive academies than the typical Middle Eastern student, but at home, traditional values reigned, especially when it came to the role of men and women. On one hand, my father was extremely progressive for the Middle East. He believed that women should be educated, and he himself married a successful educated woman. On the other hand, he expected my mother to wait on him hand and foot. For example, I never saw my father walk into the kitchen for a glass of water. He would ask my mother to go get it for him, and she would comply. I don't think he realized what he was doing. It was ingrained in how he was raised. I just love learning about how we all came to be who we are. And I think I'm just getting to an age too where I'm reflecting on that more with my parents as well. Okay, there's a really big moment in Rana's life where she is living in Kuwait at the time, but she and her family except her father, go back to Egypt to visit her grandmother. And at that moment, that is when Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait. Her entire world is turned upside down. She doesn't hear from her father for 2 weeks. She has no idea if he's alive. She really struggled to deal with the emotions that she was feeling in the culturally appropriate way. And she would dive into her schoolwork to cope, focusing on things that she could control. I grew up in a household that stressed hard work. Complaining was not tolerated, and no one slacked off no matter how tough things got. These values made me resilient in the face of major upheavals and setbacks, and for that I am grateful. But there was a downside. I avoided expressing negative thoughts at home because I believed that would be seen as whining. We would never talk about our fears or anxieties. That was unacceptable. We soldiered on even when our lives were being turned upside down. So really, this is a book about a woman who wants to create emotionally intelligent artificial intelligence. And so she's kind of letting us, the readers, understand that she had an unhealthy relationship with her own emotions. How were you taught to deal with your emotions growing up?
So I'm a very emotional person, still to this day, was very emotional, dramatic. When I was younger, everything, I just felt everything. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, just everything felt so heightened. And I think when I was younger, no one in my family really was that way. I think when I was younger, I was like, why am I feeling this so intensely? And I would go to my family. They were supportive, but they were kind of just like, just move on. Just forget about it. It's okay. Everything's okay. Let's just move past it. But for me, I was like, it doesn't feel okay. Something feels wrong, or it doesn't make sense to me. I'm confused. So I feel like we never dived deeper into my emotions. And I felt like as I grew up, it was hard for me to regulate them and make sense of them. I feel like if my feelings were hurt, my feelings were hurt, and that meant that was the truth. And I would paint a lot of pictures like, oh no, the world's terrible. I've talked with my family more about this now being older, but I was just very emotional and younger. I just feel like it's kind of brushed under the rug when my grandma would tell a story, I would be like, oh my gosh, I would be crying if I was 8 years old and I had to do all this on my own. Her whole attitude, still to this day, is just like, it's fine. I've probably seen my grandma cry maybe 2-3 times in her life, and then everything's fine. I think I grew up in that household, just like everything's fine. But for me, something didn't feel fine, or I was very confused by it. It was very hard for me to regulate my emotions, not let them control a lot of things, like my decisions.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I've had to do a lot of work on that, honestly. You just constantly have to check in with yourself, reflect. But a part of me does also wonder if it's like a generational thing, because my grandparents were kind of the same way. Just like you can't let some of the things get to you, that it's almost like a privilege, our generation, that we are able to talk about our emotions so much and have them and feel, valid having them, when like my grandparents, you just had to keep going. We have every right to be.
You can feel bad and shitty, but still be very grateful and be optimistic and see the future and see everything being okay. Because I think for me, when I was younger, it was so black and white. It was either the best of times or the worst of times. Like there was no gray area. And I feel like right now I want to be in the gray area. I think emotions are beautiful and they're just so inspiring, and being a creative and in tech too, I think emotions have been really beneficial for me and connecting with people and be able to understand them more. Like, this sounds silly, but like just communicating with yourself through your emotions.
Yeah, emotions are emotions, and that's just what they are, and we just keep going through our days.
Yes, agree. Like we're just trying to survive. We're alive, we're healthy, and however I feel, it's okay because I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's get back to Rana. We'll keep going through her education journey because obviously emotions are very important to her. Rana is incredibly smart, like super smart. She is 13 when she starts applying for colleges. She was restricted to applying to a university in Cairo so that she could live with her grandparents because she was not able to live alone, because that's not what nice Egyptian girls did. And she talks a lot about what nice Egyptian girls do throughout her book. She gets into the American University of Cairo and majors in computer science. This is what she has to say about coding. She writes, "Writing code is as much an art as it is a science. Good code is elegant and efficient. In programming lingo, good code is well documented, meaning that if another programmer looks at it, it should be evident to her what the code is for. Poorly written code is overcomplicated and just plain sloppy. Programmers refer to it as spaghetti code because the information is tangled up like strands of spaghetti." I don't speak code. I tried when I had a Zanga to code my Zanga for a little while there. I know that you speak code fluently and you work on it day in and day out. So I would love to hear about your thoughts on coding and if you have any fun stories and just, like what was it about graphic design and coding that like fired up your engine,
That's so funny that you said Xanga, because I was going to say my first coding experience was MySpace and Xanga. And I never knew I was actually coding at the time. I just realized I was like 10 years old when I was first coding. I never had a desire when I was younger to be in tech. And I don't think that was really pushed in school either. We didn't have any computer classes. We had a typing class, which I took, and that was it. I went into graphic design, and I went to school for print design. So I wanted to do packaging or work in publishing or a magazine. That was my goal. Everything was starting to move towards digital when I graduated. In my first job, they started to do web designs and making graphics for websites. I was an assistant at my first job. I thought I was going to do really cool things, but I was actually just answering phones and getting lunch. But I would shadow a lot of the art directors just to see what they are doing and seeing you have to design a little bit different for web compared to print. I was just really interested in that, and I felt like that's where design was going, so I felt like I had to learn more web design. I got another job and was doing graphic design and social design and loved it, but then tech was booming more, and I was around a lot of engineers, and I just got to see how things were really made and all the different processes. I was just interested in what they were doing and how they were doing things and just having that exposure. I just want to learn as many things as I can. And I felt like I never wanted to be an expert in anything, even though I loved graphic design. I still feel like I did so many different paths. Like I wanted to be in packaging, and then I was doing web design, then I was doing social design. I just wanted to learn more. That's where coding came in. I wanted to push myself to learn code, and I worked with some engineers, just did tutorials online, but I feel like it was going to be really beneficial for my career to learn how to code. The company I was working at had this amazing program called Code Rosie, and what the whole goal was to promote more women being in tech. It was this whole program where they were going to take 10 women out of the company, take them away from their jobs, and put them back in school.
That is so cool, by the way.
So cool. And when I saw that, I was like, free education? Yes. And it's what I want to do. And so it was a huge application process, and I had to be interviewed. I made a video on why you should pick me. And a ton of women applied. I forget the number, but it was hundreds, I feel like. And I was chosen of one of the 10. And so I left my graphic design job, and for 3 to 4 months, it was like going to school again, being in a classroom and having lectures and doing homework. And I forgot that I did not like that part of school.
Too late.
So I was like, all right, we're back. Like, that's how I realized what type of learner I am too. But so after that, I was put into basically like an associate engineering or like an internship engineering role at this company. And like, there's this opportunity doesn't really exist in other companies. Like, it was just such an amazing opportunity that I had and an experience, and I don't feel like I could have gotten it anywhere else. So I basically was an engineer then. I was just thrown into it. It was terrifying, but very supportive. And just, I did it for 3 years at this company, and it really taught me all the amazing things I could do with coding. So I was really, really fortunate for that opportunity.
That is so cool. I am so impressed by you right now.
Thank you. Sometimes I don't even believe it. I'm like, how did I get here?
You know what? I think maybe we should all sometimes just stop and reflect and be like, how did I get here? You know, it's a moment of gratitude, but I love that. Okay, so back to Rana. After graduating AUC, she accepted a fellowship there to get her master's. She meets a man named YL at a friend's barbecue and runs into him later on campus at an employment fair. He worked for a startup that she applied to right out of school, but she didn't get an offer from them. And it's really cute because he asks her, he's like, oh, I know that you applied for this company. If you have any critiques or anything that you would change when you learned about us, like, let me know. And she's like, okay, here, blah, 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 blah. So it's just very sweet. And she just, even though she is from a culture where women are restricted and women are treated differently than men and the expectations for women are differently, she comes from a very extremely supportive family where, yes, typical gender roles played out, but she's still like, her mom is badass and her mom was very appreciated within the home. In my opinion, from reading her book, she comes across as a very secure woman who knows her worth and the value that she brings to the world. I think it helps that she's so smart. When you do well, especially in education, there is external validation, and that just helps you feel better about yourself. It helps you feel more confident. So back to YL, their romance is very sweet, but they have to keep it under wraps because if her father found out, he'd expect a wedding date ASAP. She introduces him to her sisters and mother on the DL at Chili's, which she writes is the hip place in Cairo at the time, which totally made me laugh out loud because believe me, I love me some skillet queso from Chili's, but it's so funny to think of it as like a hip place.
I still think it's a hip place.
I mean,
I stand by it.
This episode is not sponsored by Chili's, but I welcome a Chili's sponsorship.
We're going to Chili's after this.
Her family loves him, and after a year of dating, he proposes marriage to her father. Rana's father likes him, but he isn't crazy about the fact that he works at a startup because he feels that's a very unstable job. And he also hires a PI to like investigate YL's family to make sure that they are the good people that they claim to be. They pass his checklist. Ultimately, he gives them the go ahead. But even as she's planning the wedding, her parents encourage her to continue her education. And YL is very supportive too. Then she reads this book that changes everything. It's called Effective Computing by Rosalind Picard. And this is the book that starts her on her EQ for AI journey. She writes, I was struck by the vital role of emotion in enabling people to make sound decisions. At the time, I believed that the best decisions were based on cold, calculated logic that didn't let feelings get in the way. In fact, as I learned, decades of neuroscience showed just the opposite to be true. Your feelings don't get in the way. They improve your thought process. Which I feel like just validates the conversation we've been having about emotions. Like, They're helpful. Don't let them control you, but lean into them. They're part of your instinctual guide. At AUC, she develops an algorithm that can identify and hone in a human face. That's her project that she works on. That's her first physical technological goal. She wants a computer to be able to read your face or my face and tell the person on the other end our emotional state. Now, this is happening before built-in computers and laptops, before, I think like flip phones were still the thing. So she is really having these big aspirational dreams years before the technology is actually there. So I love her for dreaming big and for reaching for this goal, but there are quite a few people along the way on her journey that try to convince her that this is an impossible task at where they were at in the world, in the field of technology at that time. Just sometimes you're not able to do something because the technology isn't there yet, but we have to keep dreaming big. And we have to keep hoping that eventually, we can have a robot that like cleans our house, right? Or we can have a giant machine that can take the carbon out of the air. That's my dream. That's a really big dream of mine, actually.
Great dream to have.
Thank you. So she gets married to Wael, and it's after she gets married that Rana decides to wear a hijab. There's a religious revival that's happening in Egypt at the time, and it's led by a charismatic Muslim preacher named Amir Khaled. She writes, he urged all women to wear the hijab, but he made it sound more like a prize than a burden. Many women saw the hijab in a new light, as an affirmation of their own self-worth, a symbol of their value, as opposed to something keeping them in their place. So for the first time in her life, Rana wears a hijab in public and accepts this code of modesty. I just thought that was really interesting because as an American woman who was raised in the Catholic faith, I never had the opportunity to talk to a close friend about it. None of my close friends wear hijab. So I just loved learning about her reasoning as to why she decided to wear it. And it sounds really beautiful to me. One of the great things about reading these memoirs is just gaining a little bit perspective of how other people choose to live their lives.
Yes.
Like you said, there's no one right way. She writes this, I know that science and religion are supposed to be polar opposites, but I don't see it that way. In science and religion, believers have to imagine the world not as it is, but as it will be. At the beginning of your scientific work, it is your belief, your faith that propels you forward. I thought that was beautiful because it does feel like there is a tug of war that plays out between religion and science. They both boil down to faith in something kind of bigger than yourself, really.
Just believing in it and just...
She'll talk about this more later, but she reflects on her religion later and decides what works about being religious for her and what doesn't, which I think is a nice journey for everyone to go on. I think you should always question everything.
Agreed. I agree with that. Question everything, be open to everything, and then you have all the material you need to decide what works for you.
I think that's also part of being a scientist, it's curiosity.
Yeah, you have to be, when you're, I'm not a scientist, but I feel like if you're a scientist, you should be open to everything. Yeah. So you have all the data you need then.
Yeah, exactly. So Rana goes for her PhD. She knows that that's the next step in her journey in creating an emotionally intelligent computer, and she wants to pursue a PhD in computer science. She really credits Wael's belief in her and his forward thinking not to hold her back because she feels free to apply to the University of Cambridge, even though they are barely into their marriage. And it's a top computer research center. She receives the full scholarship. When she gets in, she's still conflicted and she seeks her parents' counsel, assuming that they'll tell her, of course, her education is very important and to pursue it, but they actually disapprove. Cultural influence and the typical gender roles kind of comes in. This causes her to rethink the way that she saw her parents growing up, and she realizes that, quote, my mother's success in her career was fine as long as it didn't interfere with the family life or inconvenience my father in any way. But after a lot of tears and prayer, and with Wael's full support, Rana decides to go to England. So she married a good one. Really, this sets her life on the path that it eventually takes her to becoming CEO and creating this technology. Spoiler alert, she does end up creating the technology. And really, it feels like without Wael's support, her life would have been completely different because the people that she had relied on to support her parents, were changing their tune a little bit. I think it's really cool. She credits Wael a lot. Ultimately, their marriage does not work out, but she still speaks very highly of him throughout her memoir. Like I said, gives him a lot of credit for giving her the freedom to pursue her passions. And this is really her passion. She is so passionate about creating this technology because she truly feels like it's going to change the world and make it a better place. So as we talked about earlier in the quick topics, Cambridge is very different for her and living on her own is very different. She writes, I was struggling to reconcile being a nice religious Egyptian girl while fitting in and being independent. It really shocks her and upsets her when a male colleague tries to give her a side hug. I mean, that's just not appropriate in her mind. And it's always so tricky, right? When a clashing of cultures happens, and how do you express your discomfort with something when in somebody else's culture, it's just such a non-starter, right? Like a side hug by a nice guy. Like, and she's just like, oh my gosh, he touched me. This is a man that I don't know. This is a man that I'm not married to. I'm a married woman. I just can't imagine how uncomfortable that situation was for her. It's hard for her there. There's no support system, but she's determined to succeed and figure things out on her own. She writes about how she didn't want to draw attention to herself with her hijab when she first starts, so she wears hats instead, but she talks about how the hats were actually like kind of outrageous looking, polka dotty and purple fedoras and stuff. So she's like, I'm not really sure if that solved my problem or not, but 3 months into her fellowship, she does feel comfortable enough to don her hijab once more. Like I said before, many warn her that the technology just isn't there to accomplish what she wants to accomplish, which is building a computer that can detect emotion. She writes, the criticism forced me to develop a thicker skin and sharpen the way I talked about it. 2 life skills that proved to be essential down the road. And I think that criticism, when accepted thoughtfully and when given thoughtfully, can be a very helpful tool. Has there been any moment in your life that you can think of where criticism helped drive you forward instead of hold you back?
Yes, definitely. I feel like criticism was given a lot when I was a graphic designer working in the creative field, and I took everything so personally because that's your baby, that's your art. How could someone not like it? And then you feel like a failure. But I feel like thinking that way pushed me so much farther back in my design and my work. And it took a few years to be open to criticism and realize it can drive me forward. Even in my job right now, I take criticism very well. I've had my managers tell me that. And they're like, oh, you take feedback and notes really well. And you're very positive when someone gives you feedback. I think that's really great for relationships and building bonds when you can come across as not combative and be like, hey, I totally see your point and your feedback makes sense. Thank you. But then I get to decide if I want to do it or not. But I think that is such a better way to handle it than taking criticism personally, to just be open to new ideas. Because there are times where I was like, oh, that's a great way to solve that. I really appreciate you taking the time to like criticize my work and like give me feedback. That was very helpful. Yeah, criticism is great, and how you handle it is really important.
Yeah, I think it's about taming that big bad ego.
Yes, always, 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 always.
Going to college for acting, there was no other way than to like be criticized day in and day out. In fact, the thing that I struggled with was holding on to my confidence because I just felt so criticized from left and right. But then, you book jobs, you're validated that way. But as I've pivoted more into screenwriting, I think because I know enough to where I've read a lot of screenplays and like I know inherently what works and what doesn't, but I didn't go to school for it. I don't have an ego like I completely 100% know what I'm doing. So I love feedback from people because it is so incredible what those conversations can spark. That's kind of what happens with Rana. There's a really great moment where she does this awesome thing for her first presentation. She has to present her idea to this group of people that she's going to work with to get her PhD. And she's already hearing rumblings of people being like, that Rana, like what a crazy girl. Like she can't do this. And she goes in and she stands with her back to them and she starts talking. She feels the shift in the room behind her, everybody kind of leaning forward and being like, wait a second. And she turns around. She's basically like, it's really important that you see my face and you understand the emotion behind what I'm saying, right? Now imagine if you can't do that because of XYZ. She writes, by now you see how important the face is to communication and can imagine how hard it would be to understand each other if we didn't have access to it. More important, it drove home the point that when we are on our computers, we are always face blind. Someone suggests that she looks into autism, and she writes, I was intrigued. Were there human beings born emotionally blind, struggling with the same human skills that I was trying to teach computers? And this sets her off in such a wonderful direction because it's true. people on the autism spectrum, people with autism, have a really difficult time understanding the emotional cues that people give them. And so it was such a great path for somebody to suggest to her. And she ends up reaching out to Simon Baron-Cohen, yes, the cousin of Sacha Baron Cohen, who is the head of the Autism Research Center at Cambridge. He allows her to access his database of actors depicting specific emotions that he's using to develop tools for children on the autism spectrum. Basically, he had invited all these actors into his studio and said, okay, show me fearful, show me confident, show me, so that he could later show these videos to children who have to learn what those cues look like. They are not inherent to them. Having access to this database is what completely turns the corner for her in her work. She uses this to teach her computer what the different emotions look like on faces. She needed this resource, or else I don't know how else she was going to teach the computer what all these different faces need. Like, it was perfect for her. She goes into a lot of detail about the database and how it came to be and why it's important in the book, but I'll leave this section with this quote. The goal was to train my algorithm not only to recognize faces and discern features, but to identify facial expressions and infer meaning. That task required a number of interim steps. The computer had to first see the face, identify the features, analyze the expression, and then make a judgment call based on probability. This is one approach to AI called machine learning. So she's getting her PhD. She misses YL desperately, and it's extremely hard to be away. They're at the very beginning of their marriage. Could you imagine you're in your first year of marriage if you and your husband were in different countries right now, and one of you was extremely focused on getting a PhD and the other one is extremely focused on starting a startup? That's so difficult. But she really believes in what she's doing and the importance in the world. But YL comes to visit her, and later she realizes she's pregnant. She continues her PhD track even after Jana is born, which blows my mind. The gumption and the grit that this woman has, nothing is holding her back from accomplishing her dreams and from pursuing this thing that she believes so deeply. And it really was inspiring, because there are days where pregnancy is not the easiest thing in the world. You feel exhausted, you feel nauseous, you feel sick. She felt all those things, but she was like, I'm here, I have to do it. With a supportive family and a great daycare, she makes do. Yes, Jana is with her in Cambridge and not with YL in Cairo. And she has multiple dreams, motherhood and her dream of building this technology. So she's in Cambridge, she has Jana. Then something incredible happens. Rosalind Picard, the woman who wrote the book that changed her life, is coming to Cambridge. But this means that Rana has to stay in Cambridge for the summer, which was not part of the plan. She was supposed to go home to Cairo and YL, and they were going to do the family thing. But again, YL is very supportive and encourages her to stay and meet Rosalind. Rosalind is very excited about the potential of Rana and her technology and offers her a job at the MIT Research Lab after she completes her PhD. And again, Rana is so torn, because this is her dream job. This is the big break that she's been waiting for. And she knows that if she's going to continue her pursuit of this technology and creating this ability for the computer, she has to be at the MIT Research Lab. Like, it is the best of the best. But she feels like, as a woman, as a partner, she needs to be back in Cairo with her husband. But Rosalind will not take no for an answer.
This is amazing hearing how hard Rana worked, and it's really paying off. Like, her dreams are coming true.
I can't imagine how tricky it would be to have your dreams take you someplace so far away from where you intended to originally start your life. I do think she is really fortunate that her husband was so supportive of her at this time, because it does seem like that's an anomaly. To have somebody who you have their child and they're like, yeah, go for your dreams. Like, I believe in you, even though that means you'll be living in a different country across an ocean now. I mean, it's crazy.
It is impressive that they both get to experience and do their careers and do their dream jobs that they want to do. Because sometimes it does seem one or the other, or one has to shift. I don't think I could do this, what they were doing, but it is impressive still that they still did it.
Completely agree. After she successfully defends her thesis, she gets her PhD from Cambridge, and she writes, "Here's what I remember most about that day. For this one precious moment, it felt like I could have it all. An amazing career, a supportive husband and family, and a healthy, happy daughter. I knew I was lucky. Not everyone gets to experience that feeling in their lifetime." This idea of having it all. At this point where she is, graduating from Cambridge, she feels like she can. Later, she'll come to the conclusion that she couldn't. Her marriage to YL is not sustainable. She does go to MIT at the research lab. She accepts the job. She travels back and forth, but it's not enough. So I wondered, Chanel, Do you feel like you can have it all?
My goal is to always have it all, but I feel like I rarely sit down and ask myself, what does that mean? Like, what is having it all? Because I feel like I'm always trying to strive for the next thing. Throughout my career and my life, I feel like I have accomplished so many of the goals I wanted, but instead of sitting there and being grateful and appreciative, I was like, okay, what's next? Like, I got my dream graphic design job, but then I wanted to challenge myself more. I don't think I really sat and realized I'm 22 years old. I have my dream job already. Like, I have it all. So I feel like you can have it all. You just have to sit and be appreciative and look what you currently have.
And then you'll feel like you have it all.
Exactly. Yes.
I do feel, though, that as women, we are shown in our culture that it's difficult for us to have it all.
It does feel like being a woman, to have it all, we have to sub something out. Like, if you want to be successful in your career, that message is given, then you can't have kids a lot, when obviously that's not the reality. But it does feel like societal pressure makes women feel like we can't have it all. We do have to sub something out, or settle for something and be okay with it.
I feel like it is possible, but we need our society and our culture to get behind women, to support them, to say, yeah, we want to see you at the top of these fields. We want you to be the CEOs. We want you to be the Supreme Court justices and the lawyers and the Congress people. And so in order to do that, we're going to vote to have this legislation passed so that you can be supported in these ways.
Yeah, that is very true. Like, we need so much more support as women, especially if we do want to have kids. My husband and I, we want to have kids, and that's a goal. And my fear is, how am I going to keep my career? Because I'm very career driven and I know I need it. And I believe currently, like, if I do get pregnant, have a kid, I have 12 weeks off. I mean, that's great. A lot of people don't even have that. But to me, I'm just like, my whole life is going to change. Everything, physically, mentally. And I only have 12 weeks to just figure it out and then jump right back into it like nothing happened. And there's always a fear of losing your job. I haven't mentioned to anyone I work with that I plan to try to have a family and have kids in the future, because I'm scared. Oh, if there's layoffs, well, Chanel mentioned that she wants to have kids. Probably won't be working. So yeah, there's that fear, and it's not fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rana goes on to be a part of the MIT Media Lab, which I said, and Roz makes it happen because she doesn't take no for an answer. And Rana writes, when I got the offer to join the MIT Media Lab, I basically told YL I was going. I didn't flat out say, whether you like it or not, I'm pursuing my dream, but I didn't ask his permission either. This was a radical departure from how we had interacted up until this point. I had always sought out his advice on just about everything and believed his opinion was more valid than mine. For the first time, I felt confident to make up my own mind. I felt as if I had something important to contribute to the world, and I wanted to see it through.
She's doing it all.
She's doing it all. Doing it all. She writes about how the lab is full of intellectually defiant, disobedient misfits, which sounds fantastic to me. She writes, the fact that I, a married Muslim woman with a child leading a conservative lifestyle, had broken with the stereotype of what women like me were supposed to be, made the lab a perfect fit. So Rana goes into great detail about all the hurdles that she faced when spinning out, which is when you take the technology that she develops at the lab, a computer being able to read expressions, and forming a company. Basically, she gets to the point where everybody around her is like, it's ready. Like, now it's time for you to spin out. And I had never heard that term. I thought that was really cool. She also writes how the technology that she and Roz developed at the lab, along with so many people, helpful people, was utilized in a lot of different fields, including being used as a tool for autistic children, which was one of her early goals, used to help diagnose Parkinson's earlier than other methods. There's a really lovely moment in the book where she writes about how it helps a transgendered woman gain confidence because the computer identifies her as a female even when her family won't accept her. It was really moving to read that part. And Rana is just constantly kind of surprised about how impactful this technology that she's created has been.
It's amazing when tech helps inclusion and accessibility, because sometimes I feel like more now it's a priority in tech, but I feel like in the past it wasn't when she was doing this. This is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's using the greater power for good.
Mm-hmm.
Working in Boston and living there, like I've been foreshadowing, not even foreshadowing, just straight up saying, puts a strain on her family. And although her career is going well and she's making the technology she so believes in, ultimately YL wants a divorce. But their families literally won't allow it, Chanel. So she is told that she needs to stay in Cairo and focus on her marriage. She calls it being grounded. She's had their son, Adam, by this time, and the company's doing really well, and she finds it ironic that as an emotion expert, she missed the red flags that her husband had pulled away from her. She writes, "Our parents placed much of the blame for the unraveling of our marriage on me. I was the non-traditional woman. I was the entrepreneur who commuted to America." She continues, "To both sets of parents, the solution was simple. I needed to be a better wife. I went along with it. The older and wiser Rana of today understands that it takes two to tango. I wasn't the only one who didn't nurture this marriage." But nice Egyptian girl Rana succumbed to the voice in her head that kept saying over and over again, "It's all your fault. You did this to yourself. You're such a failure." Her dad tries to convince her to give up Affectiva, the company that she and Ross had created. She writes, "It was clear to me that the same rules didn't apply to men. No one was asking YL to leave his company to move to Boston. Why not?" Double standard.
The worst. It's so hard. Like, YL is so supportive, though, which is amazing. You don't see a lot. But yeah, there were never other options for him to move or put a pause on his job. It was always on Rana. I don't know, it's just really hard seeing that and just seeing her success and that her family can't see that through what she's accomplished and what she's still accomplishing, and still is all her fault. And I don't know, she's doing already so much, and it's like, let's just throw this on top of you as well.
It's like the failure of her marriage overshadows this incredible success that she has. I think it's awesome that he was so supportive at the beginning. And I do also understand that relationships have to be nurtured. She wins a spot in Forbes' 35 Innovators Under 35, but she can't go to Boston to get her award because she was working on her marriage. It's also during this time that Rana decides to discontinue wearing the hijab. She writes that it was making her feel old and dated, and she wanted to be Rana 2.0. This is where we're talking about reinvention earlier. She also writes, "But on a deeper level, my views on religion, my worldview had changed. I no longer felt that outward displays of religious devotion were the sole measure of one's spirituality. The true test of faith was how you conducted yourself in the world, with the respect and kindness you showed others, the empathy you displayed." That is what I feel like our religious world is missing. There's so much, look at me, I'm a Christian, but there's a lot of talk, but not a lot of action.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, she and YL truly end things, and she moves back to Boston, and she feels like a massive failure. She writes, "This was the first time that I had encountered a problem that hard work and perseverance couldn't solve."
That's crushing.
She does eventually become the CEO of Affectiva, which we'll get into that a little bit more, because now we're going to talk about being a woman in technology. So you've talked a lot about your experience as a woman in tech. Rana has many examples where she didn't fit the expected mold. How many women are at your current company?
Ooh, I'm not sure. It's a pretty big company that I'm not, but I mean, on my team alone, there's 12 of us.
Are you the only woman of color?
Yes. I rarely have seen a Black woman in tech. It's very rare. Even in graphic design, I didn't see anyone that kind of looked like me. I think that's always been hard for me, but yeah, this boys club mentality, definitely in all the careers I've had. I've seen it since I was 20 years old. I just kind of got used to it, kind of adapted just to roll with it, and kind of code switch to talk their language and whatever, and just kind of downplay myself too. I've definitely downplayed myself to not intimidate men, because how dare we? I think it's hard too, as a Black woman. It comes across like I have an attitude, or I'm sassy, or I'm just hard to deal with. I don't know, I feel like every job I've taken just gets exhausting to figure out how I should show up, who I should be. Being a woman in tech is really complex, but it is amazing once you have other women in tech and you all get in a group together and you get to collaborate and we're all on the same page, and you just feel like you have a safe place and you can be yourself and give ideas without fear. And one thing I realized with women in tech I haven't experienced, but I was nervous, is competition between each other. And I've never felt that, the competition between women.
That's awesome.
In tech and in...
You guys are all just there supporting each other and championing each other.
Yes, because we have to, because we know how hard it is.
She talks a lot about imposter syndrome and self-doubt, and I really resonated with this. She writes, "I realized I was my toughest critic. I had a harder time convincing myself than I did other people." At one point, Rana is considered by the board to be the CEO of her own company, Affectiva. I spoiled it earlier that she does later become CEO, but after their first one that they hired takes the job somewhere else, and her estranged husband tells her, "Oh, it would be a great career move for you, detrimental for the company." Her self-esteem is shot. She writes, "I hesitated. I had never been CEO before, and as I've learned through the years, women tend to only raise their hands if they check 110% of the requirements. Men, not so much." Sure enough, the VP of Business Development, Nick, jumped at the chance. She writes, "I didn't fault Nick for stepping forward, but I was angry with myself for not having the confidence to take that risk. Later that night, I burst into tears over what I'd done, and I wrote in my journal, 'This doesn't feel right. This was a mistake. I know I'll regret this.'"
Imposter syndrome is real, and I wish we talked about it more. I mean, I wish I didn't know about this until I started my career. I didn't even know it was a thing, but it's so real and it's just so hard to figure out because it's such an internal battle. I feel like one way I've been trying to combat imposter syndrome is just to celebrate those little victories. I don't think we sit and celebrate and give yourself credit when you accomplish something. Build yourself up and just believe in yourself, because there's a reason why we're here right now. It's because of us and the work we've done.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about her company, Affectiva, and emotional AI. This is her case for emotional EQ, which is emotional
Quotient or?
Yes, thank you. Emotional quotient. I actually wrote it down somewhere because I was like, remember to say this. In technology and social media. She writes, "Social scientists say we are in an empathy crisis. It is the inability to put yourself in another's shoes and feel compassion, sympathy, and kinship for another human being. This stunning lack of concern for our fellow citizens permeates and festers in the cyber world, especially on social media, and is spilling over into the real world. We are at risk of undermining the very traits that make us human in the first place."
I don't know, I really thought social media was really positive, and it was a way to connect with a lot of my friends when I moved to LA and they lived back in Washington. But it's so interesting how disconnected I've been for so long and not realizing it. I don't know, I've just realized I've spent hundreds of hours doing it, and I'm like, I could be having really meaningful conversations with my husband and my friends, or calling people more.
Yeah. Rana writes, "For many of us, computers have become the primary way we communicate with each other. We may all be connected all the time, wherever we are, but it doesn't mean we are actually communicating or connecting in a meaningful way. Words alone do not convey the true meaning of a message. The vast majority of human-to-human communication is transmitted through our non-verbal signals, facial expressions, and fluctuations in voice, gesture, and body language. All of this is lost when we communicate online." And it's true, you can't pick up tone or context sometimes from a text message. So Rana's ultimate goal is to enable human beings to retain our humanity when we are in the cyber world. And her quest is to humanize technology before it dehumanizes us. There are a couple of more quotes of hers that I want to discuss with you. "For as long as I can remember, there has been an ongoing struggle to reconcile my dreams and goals with my upbringing. The voice in my head is filled with self-doubt. It whispered, 'You can't, you shouldn't, you wouldn't.' For the longest time, I listened to that voice. I stifled my emotions. I focused on doing what people around me thought was right. But the journey that has taken me from nice Egyptian girl to a strong woman in charge has been one of finding my own voice. I am no longer afraid of expressing my emotions and acting on my feelings. This gave me strength and understanding and made me a better leader, CEO, and human being. I have learned that the greater fluency and mastery we have over our emotions, the more confident we can become in allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, allowing ourselves to open up to others and with ourselves. This is how we become truly empathetic."
I agree. We are worthy, and it's okay, and it's not an inconvenience to feel this way. Because I feel like as women, we always just feel like an inconvenience. Not to speak for everyone, but I definitely feel like I'm an inconvenience with my feelings or how I view the world.
I do too. So yeah, I think part of Rana's journey was feeling okay with her emotions. And it sounds like part of your and I's journey is realizing that it's all okay. And however we decide to show up as women is how we are showing up as women. And that's valid.
Yeah, and it doesn't make us weak either. It makes us stronger. Empathy and being empathetic is such a strong skill. Sometimes people view it as weak or easy to walk over. I view myself as a very empathetic person. I feel like it's what's helped me build strong relationships and have people feel comfortable around me. I try to lean into that and be like, this is a good thing to have.
Yeah.
Being empathetic.
I think empathy is beautiful. I think the world needs more of it. And it's just coming from a place where we just try to understand one another a little bit more as opposed to having judgments. At one point, she supports her daughter in going to a friend's bar mitzvah, and her very conservative aunt is very shocked and appalled by it. But Rana writes, "It is a testament to my ability to grow and to become a citizen of the larger world." I love that. Citizen of the larger world. I don't think you have to be religious to believe in something bigger than yourself and want to be a part of something greater than yourself.
We're all connected in some form of way. I've always felt no matter our differences, who we are, how we were raised, we're all connected. Like we're still all part of the same energy and connected. So how you show up.
Yeah, it ripples out. It ripples out to other people.
Yeah.
That was Girl Decoded by Rana el Kaliouby.
This was so nice. Thanks for inviting me and letting me tell part of my story. I'm definitely going to go back and read this, and because I'm really interested in the AI portion just to remove some fear I have.
The memoir was mostly just a reminder to remain curious, steadfast in your convictions, lean into empathy, and together we can all build a better world for each other.
I love it.
Thank you so much for talking with me today, Chanel.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Babes in Bookland. To access the full version of this episode, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or support us on Patreon. Visit babesinbookland.com for more information.